onto now Oxyclean Classic, Brugge de Panne, Coxeter, Oudenarde, Gerardsbergen, AG, Benji's house race in the marshes. Oxyclean, Benji, is that Belgian Dettol? What is Oxyclean? Is that like EPO or something?
Wouldn't be very clean, would it? I think that
yeah, true.
I actually don't have a clue what that is. I had to look it up yesterday, and it's some kind of washing additive or something. Somebody posted in the comment section to shout out to that person. I forgot who you are, but I'll check back after this podcast, and I'll graciously thank you in the comments. So thank you very much for looking that up. But this race, I think yesterday we didn't really note it this much that last year that was one of the better races of the season. Yeah. And we kind of didn't mention it at all.
It got the worst scheduling, Benji. Yeah. I was dead. It was like in the middle of the Giro Vuelta overlap when everyone was so sick of pro cycling. And it was on a weird time, got no promotion. But yeah, what happened last year?
Last year we had huge echelons in the mood and the marches.
yeah,
and
ridiculous.
We had like 8 or 7 riders left, and that was the race where Van der Poel was in the front group and the camera guy was washing the camera, and we looked back and Van der Poel was like next to the rope on the floor. So yeah, we had that today again.
He hit his head pretty hard.
Yeah, I'm afraid we had that again today. Someone being thrown into the ditch, and that was Sarah Roy. And well, she had to take her bike out of the ditch, and this is the funny part of it. I'm pretty sure she pulled half of the field with that bike outside because she pulled it, and there was like so much grass and like weed and all that kind of stuff there. Weed as in the non-drug plant. Anyway, this is going off topic very, very easily.
Okay,
let's
profile.
Go back to the
I'll do the profile. Brugge de Panne, you know it well, 158 Ks, pancake flat, same sort of course as the men's race. Nice and long for the women's race too, 158 Ks. Live coverage started well before 80 Ks to go. They've got the Muren, or whatever it's called, the marsh area. Just a quick weather check from you, Benji, when you went out for your daily recording of the wind in West Flanders. Was it windy? Was it super windy? Was it windy enough for echelons? I know you go out and check every day.
Yes. I had my daily check just looking through the window just 1 second ago. And apparently it's pretty sunny outside. So that's pretty cool. But regarding the wind, I have no clue how windy it is outside. But it doesn't really matter because the Muren always has wind. Like that section always has wind because it's next to the ocean.
No, legit, I didn't know that.
It's always like in some area that, yeah, it's so open that it always has wind. But the issue is that it's not always the biggest wind. Yesterday it was significant wind, but it didn't really cause an echelon. Today it did. But let's jump into that. We had an entire group, the peloton. I think the best thing we can do here is like go into what happened in the race in the last like 40 kilometers. We had at 30 kilometers that we went into the Muren once again, the marches. And that is where action started to happen. We saw that echelons were about to open up. And we saw that, I think Bike Exchange was one of the teams that tried to get their riders to the front in that last section. And it looked like everybody knew that something was coming because they went through it before, like at the start of the stage. So they obviously know what the Muren is like already. And in that section, they knew everything was coming. The people were moving to the front. And the most important riders were at the front when it all decided to split up, because split ups did indeed happen. One person was missing out on the front group.
It was 12, and then Lotte Kopecky, Belgian national champ. Benji and I both think she's a proper superstar. She was off the back. Lorena Wiebes, DSM, completely missed this move. There'd been some crosswind teaser action with 80 Ks to go. Nothing eventuated out of it. There weren't even consistent breaks. Everything was kept really tight. And yeah, probably exploded with 33 Ks to go. Balsamo on Valkar, Julie Leth, Emma Norsgaard, star of this early season Danish champ on Movistar with teammates, Hansen and Hosking, Trek Segafredo represented by multiple riders, Alice Barnes, Grace Brown on Bike Exchange, I think. solo, or maybe with one teammate. It was Brennauer, the German national champ on Theratizit, there with her teammate Kirsten Wild. She created the split, Brennauer. Jolene Dora with Amy Peters, so everyone wouldn't have been too happy about that, having that quick duo in there. But Kopecky Benji, solo bridge,
Yeah,
probably cost her later, but how impressive was that?
pretty damn impressive. She had to solo back from the second group in the echelon to the first group, and in echelons, that's basically almost impossible sometimes, and you need to be extremely strong to battle to win on your own to try and get back to the front group. Often we see this in yeah, we saw this in Qatar a few years ago. Like back in the days when we had the Tour of Qatar for the men's, we had so many echelons there, and we saw it so much where riders that were in the second group could never make it back to the front group.
Yeah.
And I was so surprised that she would be able to make that because I was scared that she missed out, and that move brought her back into contention for the race. And I thought when I saw that group, when I saw who was in it, that this could actually genuinely work out because a lot of teams represented and a lot of teams that won't be doing the working in that second group. And now that Kopecki's at the front as well, Liv also doesn't really have to do chasing in the second group. So this 13 women group looked to be gone at that moment. Did you have the same feeling?
Yeah, I thought it was done. And generally in the women's races, if you've got multiple SD Works plus Trek and Kopecky up front in these Belgian races, and Brennauer too, she's a beast, then it's a wrap for the chase group. We've seen DSM chasing, I don't know in how many races. So yeah, they were pretty much chasing, particularly after the Sarah Roy crash. 7Ks went past where the gap was staying pretty stable between 40 and 45 seconds from 26 to 19 Ks to go. Then Brennauer, the initiator of the first echelon through the marshes, she had a rear wheel puncture. Race done for her. Big shame. I think she might have had a good result and would have changed the outcome of this race, actually. Their advantage went down then, the lead group, to about 30 seconds, then 25 seconds with 12 Ks to go. But I've seen this before. The effort from DSM or the team, the main team chasing behind, they can bring it back. But then they've, 45 to 35. They burn a rider, they're done. Then they've got two left and they bring it down to 25. And then they maybe have one rider left and they're all cooked. And so the gap pretty much, was staying stable at 25-30 to them. Think about the composition now of this break. And you got Norsgaard, properly quick. Kirsten Wild, sprinter, you know that. Hosking, same story. Jolindor, Kopecky, and Balsamo's got a kick on her too. That's like 5 or 6 sprinters. And Grace Brown, who won Brabantse Pijl last year and nearly chased down one of the informed riders at that moment, Lizzie Diagnan in Liège-Bastogne-Liège from far out. She attacked, and she was alone too, with 10 Ks to go. Now, if she'd been brought back, Benji, I'd probably be here criticizing her for attacking too early. But why did that attack then work so well?
Well, I'm a bit questioned when it comes to what just then means in that question, but I think that what happens in this group is that you indeed have those sprinters, and it looked like the riders that those sprinters had, because some actually had duos in their teams, so some teams had multiple riders there, but they weren't really kind of keeping it together. They weren't like deciding, oh, we're gonna all out go for this person in our team. They would probably think to go for the sprinter in their squad, but like in Amy Peters was a rider that I would expect to all out ride from that point for her teammate, and it didn't really work that way. They were pacing, but it was not at a hardcore pace, and we saw at a certain point that the group behind them was closer again, but then the gap started expanding again, and yeah, because that cooperation was not perfect, it's ideal for someone like Grace Brown, someone with a real engine to try and come from past the riders, come from behind the riders, and kind of surprise a few people with an attack. And if you don't react to that directly, you've got a flat rider. Well, she's not only a flat rider, we know that because she's done some crazy stuff already last year. But if you know that someone with such an engine is getting away, you need to respond directly to the wheel, because if you make the move to counter it and then you
Yeah.
say, come on, elbow, who's going to take over, and nobody's taking over, then the group is just completely
Well, that's what Kopecky
obliterated when it
did.
comes to cooperation. And yep,
Like we saw that. Kopecky was on or close to Grace Brown's wheel, was accelerating, and then just stopped. And then, I mean, I'm not criticizing her. I'm just saying what happened. But because she obviously had that big solo bridge, but we saw a few things like that. Amy Peters tried to accelerate and get there, couldn't quite get there. She realized, well, Jolene Dore didn't help her. Sometimes I think sprinters should just help and forego the thinking, oh, well, I've got a rider in this group, why don't they chase? Well, if they're cooked and tired and the gap is only 5 or 6 seconds, and if they pace, then the gap's going to go out to 10 or 15 seconds. You've now created a bigger problem for yourself. So you should be talking with your teammate and figuring out what's the best strategy to do. Hansen as well, she tried to attack and bridge across to that. The teammate of Chloe Hosking didn't agree with that. I think the way to go was obviously simple. You know, Peters, Hansen, and co just working to bring back Grace Brown. Because honestly, looking at the rest of the riders in this group, Benji, if you bring back Grace Brown, there's no Brenau. She punctured. Alan Van Dyke isn't here. Probably just, and Kopecky's cooked. You probably would have then had your sprint if you were those other teams. So I think they'll be, maybe thinking about what they did wrong today. But Grace Brown was able to hang on. She never really looked in doubt. To be honest, she just maintained that gap the whole way to the finish. By the time they started to get really organised behind Bianic and Peters, it was 4Ks to go. Grace Brown had 18 seconds. DSM were like a minute behind in the third chase group. Under the Flamme Rouge, we knew she had it, and she was looking strong too, with pretty much like over 10 seconds at that point, and she wins Brugge to Panne, big Women's World Tour result for Grace Brown and Bike Exchange. 7 seconds ahead of Norsgaard, winning the bunch sprint, ahead of Jolien Dore. Kopecky 4th, Balsama 6th, 5th rather, Kirstenfield 6th, Hosking 7th, Alice Barnes 8th, Amy Peters 9th, and Julia Leith 10th. Don't know why I struggle with the results so much, Benji. If Paris-Roubaix does go ahead this year, Benji, Grace Brown, what do you think?
I think that she's an option to do really well on that parcours. She's got the real engine. She can get over the cobbles. I think that this is completely off topic now, but I think that when it comes to Paris-Roubaix, the thing that we don't think about is how early these women would have to start, because you got to keep in mind they need to ride earlier than the men's race, so they need to start riding 7:45 in the morning, which means that if you need to have your last meal 3-ish hours before the race, then you're going to be waking up at 4:45 in the morning to ride Paris-Roubaix. It's genuinely fucked up.
Mate, you're just describing riding in southeast Queensland to me. So, I take your point. It is very early. And like Milano San Remo men's as well, they start so early. The women's. So Paris-Roubaix is scheduled the opposite to Flanders, Benji. They got the women's finishing before the men's.
I don't have a clue. I don't know the schedule by heart, but
Okay.
it's certainly the earliest that a women's race is starting, and I think that it's an interesting topic because we don't really realize that, and it becomes even worse if you think about the virtual races they had last year, where people had to like wake up in the middle of the night to try and
Yeah,
ride it.
Sarah
So
Giganti did them at like 2 in the morning. The
it's
Australian
crazy.
star. Yeah, I know. But anyway, I think the next big women's race, let me just have a look to keep you in the loop. I think this was the women's. Listen, you're listening to this pod, so I'm preaching to the choir here, but women's racing can be more exciting than the men's edition. And if anyone disagrees with you on that, and it can be the other way around too, but women's racing can definitely be more exciting. Send them Brugge de Pan women's compared to the men's Brugge de Pan, and just be
Yes.
like, I rest my case. Like, no one can disagree with that. But we've got women's Gen Wevelgem on Sunday, so that should be pretty good. We don't have a preview for it. Then Tour of Flanders about a week next weekend, and then Roubaix I think will be postponed. We've got some good classics. Grace Brown at Gen Wevelgem, I presume she's racing it. PCS women's start lists aren't the best for me to trust, but she's on the start list there. So, yeah, she'll be on for a top 5 minimum, I think. But that's all from us today. It's our Brugge de Pan women's recap, and we'll see you with the Catalonia Stage 5 tomorrow. Ciao.